This comparison gets a whole lot less philosophical when you put a SIG P365 loaded with defensive 9mm next to a dependable 22 long rifle pistol. Like the Ruger LCP-2 Light Rack or the Taurus TX-22 Compact. One option gives you stronger terminal performance and centerfire reliability. The other often delivers quicker follow-up shots, less recoil anticipation, and a whole lot more range time, because the ammo bill doesn't feel like a terrible financial decision. And from my experience, self-defense gets complicated fast once recoil tolerance, rimfire reliability, concealment needs, and training habits all start pulling in different directions. That's usually where the simple answer stops being the honest answer. Let's break this one down. Walk into a gun store and ask 3 different employees what they recommend for concealed carry. Odds are, you'll hear the same names before they finish the sentence. Glock 43X, SIG P365, Hellcat, Shield Plus. The answer comes out so quickly, it almost sounds programmed. Less like advice, more like a preset response. And honestly, there's a 9mm earned its place. Defensive ammunition is everywhere. Federal HST Spear Gold. Winchester Ranger T Horn. A D Critical Defense. These are real defensive loads with proven performance histories, not just advertising claims and gel block demonstrations. Centerfire ignition is also more dependable than rimfire. Capacity beats most of the older pocket pistol calibers. And if something wears out, finding magazines or replacement parts usually isn't an adventure. On paper, it looks like an easy decision. Then someone buys a micro compact because the internet told them serious people carry 9mm. And the first range trip becomes a reality check. A P365 or Hellcat hides extremely well, but that short grip and sharp recoil can punish a new shooter in a hurry. Fast enough that recoil anticipation starts creeping in. Shots start dropping low. Practice sessions become less frequent. And before long, the owner is quietly avoiding the range because shooting the gun feels more like being corrected than gaining confidence. That's the hidden issue. A lot of people choose the caliber first, then discover afterward that they dislike the pistol attached to it. A carry gun should encourage repetition. You should look forward to training with it. Not sit in the parking lot negotiating with yourself before every range session. 9mm absolutely deserves the reputation it has. But the default answer isn't automatically the correct answer. Plenty of people are carrying what everyone calls the best gun and secretly shooting it terribly. That's a pretty expensive way to feel responsible. A lot of shooters buy micro 9mm pistols, believing they're getting everything. A serious defensive caliber, a tiny footprint, easy all-day carry. Then the first real range session happens, and the honeymoon ends quickly. Look at pistols like the SIG P365, Springfield Hellcat, or Glock 43. Most weigh somewhere around 17 to 21 ounces unloaded. Most use barrels a little over 3 inches long, and they cram full power defensive 9mm into a package barely larger than the old .380 pocket pistols. Fantastic for concealment. Not nearly as pleasant when physics starts collecting its payment. That lighter slide changes the feel. That shorter grip changes the feel. Everything happens faster. Even though it's the same caliber, recoil often feels sharper and more abrupt than a Glock 19 or Smith & Wesson M&P compact. Muzzle rise becomes more noticeable. Your support hand has less surface area to grab, and people who don't train consistently usually see their follow-up shots slow down. A lot of shooters figure out very quickly that carrying a P365 is easier than shooting 200 rounds through it. Defensive ammunition makes the difference even more obvious. Running standard 115 grain FMJ at the range is one thing. Load that same pistol with 124 grain plus P Federal HST or Spear Gold Dot, and suddenly the gun feels a lot less friendly. That matters, because defensive performance comes from the ammunition you actually carry, not the soft practice ammo people use to make range day easier. Smaller pistols also expose poor trigger control much faster. The shorter sight radius magnifies every mistake. Push the gun, slap the trigger. Relax your grip. Every error shows up on target. And that's exactly why so many people buy the perfect carry gun and slowly stop enjoying practice. The gun carries beautifully, but when every range trip feels like getting scolded, skill starts declining long before anyone wants to admit it. A lot of people dismiss .22 long rifle as a joke when self-defense comes up. But the cartridge has been putting holes in living things since long before half the internet learned how to spell stopping power. The reason it keeps showing up in these conversations is simple. It's easy to shoot well, and that matters more than many people want to admit. Start with recoil. Take a Taurus TX22 Compact, a Ruger SR22, or a Smith & Wesson M&P 22 Compact. Compared to a micro 9mm, recoil is almost non-existent. That translates into faster follow-up shots, less flinching, better trigger control under pressure. Most shooters, especially newer carriers, older shooters, or people dealing with limited hand strength, can put accurate rounds on target much faster with a .22 long rifle than with a P365 loaded with defensive 9mm. Capacity gets overlooked too. A TX22 Compact carries 13+1. The full-size TX22 uses 16-round magazines. A Ruger SR22 offers 10+1 in a compact package. That's a lot of chances from a cartridge people constantly call too small. Multiple accurate hits with minimal recoil usually beat one confident miss, followed by a lecture about caliber superiority. Ammo cost changes behavior as well. Bulk .22 long rifle is still dramatically cheaper than quality 9mm. 500 rounds of decent .22 practice ammunition often costs less than a few boxes of premium defensive 9mm. So people practice more because they can afford to. Nobody builds shooting skill by sitting at home admiring ballistic charts. Even terminal performance isn't as cartoonishly weak as some people pretend. Loads like CCI Mini, Mag Federal Punch .22, and Winchester Silver Tip can produce meaningful penetration from defensive length barrels when placement is solid. No, it's not ideal, but neither is missing with something bigger. The real reason .22 long rifle keeps finding its way back into the conversation is simple. People actually shoot it. The pistol stays in their hands. It doesn't become a firearm they admire from across the room. A carry gun should feel familiar, boring, automatic. And a lot of shooters reach that point much faster with a .22 long rifle than with a snappy little 9mm they keep promising they'll eventually learn to love. A defensive handgun is supposed to remove uncertainty, not create a new one every time you press the trigger. With .22 long rifle, that uncertainty usually sounds like a click instead of a bang. And once you've experienced that during serious training, your confidence in rimfire gets tested quickly. The issue starts with cartridge design. A 9mm cartridge uses a centerfire primer located in the middle of the case head. The firing pin strikes one dedicated primer cup. That system produces more consistent ignition and fewer surprises. A .22 long rifle cartridge works differently. The priming compound is distributed inside the rim of the case. If that compound is uneven, too thin in one section, or poorly distributed at the factory, the firing pin can strike correctly and the round can still fail to ignite. Anyone who shoots enough rimfire has seen it. Bulk packs have a reputation for reminding people not to trust them too much. Federal Automatch, older Remington golden bullets, random bargain bricks sitting on the back shelf. Eventually, one of them gives you a dead trigger press and an unwanted lesson about ammunition quality. Premium loads like CCI Mini, Mag, Federal Punch, and Velocitor improve consistency, but they don't eliminate the basic limitation of rimfire design. A misfire during practice is annoying. A misfire in a defensive encounter is an entirely different discussion. Revolvers handle that problem better. Another trigger pull gets the gun back into action. Semi-autos like the Taurus TX22 or Ruger SR22 require immediate malfunction clearing, and under stress even 1 second can feel expensive. Cheap ammunition and light recoil make .22 long rifle extremely attractive for training and even useful for certain defensive roles. Reliability is where the conversation changes. Trusting a carry gun means believing the round will fire every single time, not most of the time. Buying a 9mm for self-defense is easy. Remaining proficient with it is where many people quietly struggle. Most concealed carriers end up carrying something very similar. SIG P365, Glock 43X, Hellcat, Shield Plus, excellent carry pistols. But they're also small, lightweight, and completely honest about recoil. A P365 weighs roughly 17.8 ounces unloaded. A Hellcat lives in the same weight class. Feed those guns full, pressure 124, grain or 147, grain defensive ammunition, especially plus P-loads like Federal HST or Spear Gold Dot, and the recoil becomes noticeably sharper than many shooters expect. Short grip, short sight radius, fast recoil impulse, bad habits show themselves quickly, and that affects training more than most people admit. Many owners practice primarily with inexpensive 115 grain FMJ because it's cheaper and softer shooting than the defensive loads they actually carry. The problem is that recoil characteristics can change. Point of impact can change. Reliability can change. If someone only shoots their carry ammunition once a year to confirm it functions, a lot of that confidence is based on imagination. Cost makes the issue worse. Running 500 rounds of 9mm every month, while also performing regular function checks with defensive hollow points, gets expensive fast. Premium ammunition, like HST Gold Dot and Critical Defense, often costs around $1 per round or even more. So people start cutting back. Not because they're lazy, because their wallet starts filing complaints. Now compare that to .22 long rifle. A Taurus TX-22 with 16-round magazines, or a Ruger Mark IV. Those guns can be shot constantly because the ammunition cost is completely different. Hundreds of rounds of practice, reload drills, target transitions, malfunction, clearing exercises, all of it becomes realistic instead of turning into a budgeting discussion. Skill comes from repetition, not caliber pride. A shooter firing 300 rounds a week through a .22 usually develops better trigger control than the person carrying a micro 9mm and shooting it once every couple of months. That's the training reality a lot of people don't like talking about. Violence doesn't show up with hearing protection and a shot timer. It arrives ugly. Bad lighting, bad footing, bad decisions, and your heart trying to launch itself through your chest while your hands suddenly stop cooperating. That clean range performance you were proud of last weekend. Stress can destroy it in seconds. Fine motor skills are usually the first thing to go. Trigger presses become slaps. Reloads feel like you're wearing oven mitts. Sight pictures get sloppy because tunnel vision takes over, and your brain is busy screaming instead of calculating marksmanship fundamentals. This is where tiny carry guns expose weaknesses quickly. A snappy micro 9mm like a Hellcat or P365 becomes much harder to control when recoil management was already hanging on by a thread during calm practice sessions. Accurate hits determine outcomes, not caliber bragging rights. A shooter running a soft-shooting Taurus TX-22 or Ruger SR-22 and delivering fast, accurate hits can be far more effective than someone carrying premium 9mm defensive ammunition and jerking shots into drywall because recoil anticipation took over. That statement makes some people uncomfortable. Targets don't care. They're brutally honest. 9mm still deserves the reputation it has. Better penetration matters. More capable defensive loads matter. Centerfire reliability matters, especially when FBI testing standards emphasize a consistent 12 to 18 inches of penetration. A .22 long rifle doesn't suddenly defeat physics because someone got emotional on YouTube. But real defensive encounters aren't laboratory demonstrations. They're chaos. Distances are short, movement is unpredictable. People miss far more than they like admitting. That's where familiarity starts paying dividends. If the gun feels natural, if recoil doesn't create hesitation, if training has built automatic responses, performance improves. A carry pistol should feel boring, predictable, familiar enough that your mind can focus on surviving instead of arguing with the trigger. If we're being realistic, ego has probably sold more micro 9mm pistols than good judgment ever has. A lot of concealed carriers end up with a P365 Hellcat or Glock 43X because nobody wants to admit they shoot a 22 better. Apparently, honesty has become a caliber issue, so here's the answer after all. The internet chest beating. For most people, 9mm remains the better defensive choice. Centerfire reliability matters. Penetration matters. Quality defensive loads like Federal HST, Spear Gold Dot, and Winchester Ranger T exist for good reasons, and FBI standards weren't built around feelings. If you can comfortably control a reliable compact 9mm like a Glock 19 Shield Plus or P365, there really isn't a serious argument against carrying it. It's the standard because it earned that position. But life gets less straightforward when hands start hurting, when recoil tolerance drops, when confidence disappears, older shooters dealing with arthritis, people recovering from hand injuries, smaller framed carriers, new shooters who tense up every time a micro 9mm snaps in their palm. Those people are living in a different reality. Hand someone a Taurus TX22, a Ruger SR22, or a quality 22 revolver, and performance can change dramatically. Better grip control, faster follow-up shots, more practice, less avoidance. The firearm actually gets used instead of being admired from a distance like an expensive family heirloom. A carry gun isn't a morality test, it's a tool. The right answer is the gun you can draw, fire, and trust when pressure is high. Not the one that wins arguments in a comment section full of people who think recoil tolerance is a personality trait. For most shooters, 9mm wins. For some shooters, a reliable 22 wins.